Imagine you're a flight attendant for a large airline. You're on a routine flight and you notice a young girl and an old man sitting together. Something's a little out of place. The old man's dressed really well. He's in his 50s. The girl's a young teenager. He doesn't really look like her dad. And she's also really shabbily dressed. Her hair's greasy. She's real dirty. And just doesn't, she really looks like she's been through hell, quite honestly. So you're a flight attendant. You've had seminars that trained you on the red flags for human trafficking. So you try to get a feel for the situation a little more. You address them, ask them if they need anything to drink. You notice the guy's really defensive and the girl's scared out of her mind. So you try to send her a secret message by means of the restroom, leaving a note for her. And she eventually, throughout the flight, gets up, goes to the restroom, she leaves a note, and the flight attendant checks it again and says, I need help. So she immediately notifies the pilot, who notifies the cops, so that when the plane lands at the airport, the police are ready, waiting to arrest the guy. Come to find out, the girl was a victim of human trafficking, and the guy was part of a human trafficking ring. Stories like this happen all the time, and this story is actually true. This was a story from the New York Daily News back in 2017 by Nancy Dillon. So today I want to inform you all on human trafficking in its many forms, the prevalence of human trafficking, how big of a deal it is, and why it's so prevalent, and the victims of human trafficking. Also, I would like to inform you on what governments and other organizations are doing across the globe to combat human trafficking. So I'd like to start off by giving you all a general idea of what human trafficking is, give you a definition. This picture right here shows that human trafficking is complex. It's not just one kind of sexual exploitation or forced labor, but it includes that and many other things. You got forced prostitution, forced marriage, forced child beggar, and even organs, using humans to traffic their organs. But to give you a general definition, an official definition this is a definition from Trafficking Victims Protection Act. It defines human trafficking as sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or which a person is induced to perform such an act before the age of 18. Also, it's the recruitment, harboring, and transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, coercion, for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. That's the official definition as defined by the United States government, but it's kind of narrow. It's a lot more broader than that. It includes a lot more different things, and it's kind of an ambiguous definition because it continues to grow and change throughout time and include different groups. So there are many forms of human trafficking, and it adds to the complexity of the problem. Right here I have a graph that shows the percentages of human trafficking, what kinds of human trafficking and the most used. So you can see 58% is sexual exploitation, that's the largest. You have 36% is forced labor. You also have 0.2% is organ removal. That's what I thought. That's one big surprise to me. I never knew that was an issue. 4.2% are other types, the various other types of human trafficking, and 1.5% is begging, forced begging. So next I'd like to move on to the prevalence of human trafficking, and why is it so prevalent, and who are some of the people at risk as victims to human trafficking. As you see, it's estimated that 4 to 27 million people across the globe fall victim to human trafficking every year. I mean, that's a huge number. It's a lot of people from all over the globe that are falling victim to this terrible crime. This chart right here identifies some of the victims in terms of gender. As you see, women are the most at risk. You have 59% are women and 17% are girls being under the age of 18. And then the following 14 and 10% are men and boys. So the next question, why is this such a big industry? Why is human trafficking so huge? Why does it affect so many millions of people? It's so prevalent because it's quite honestly, it's a supply and demand. There's a high demand for cheap labor. Right here in Joseph Chamby's book, he says human trafficking includes. So trafficking is greatly facilitated by worldwide demands for cheap, compliant labor, as well as the low risk and high profits made by these human trafficking organizations. And these people are kept in. It's so profitable. They don't get in trouble because these people are under threat of torture, confinement, rape, threats against them and their family. So they never report these crimes and they stay in it because they fear their lives and the lives of their family. It's a human trafficking is believed to be an estimated $32 billion a year business over 161 countries. That's from the U.S. Department of State and International Labor Organization 2014. It's a huge business. It's very profitable. That's why it's such a big business, because these people are making a ton of money off of it. United States, I have another point here by Cecilia Salva in the Rutgers University Press. She talks about, it's such a huge problem even in developed nations like the United States, because we're not, we're a destination for human trafficking for many different reasons. We're also a source for human trafficking, so we get hit on both ends in the United States. So finally, human trafficking is such a big problem. It's prevalent. It's got as many different forms. So what's being done to combat human trafficking? As an individual, it's kind of hard to do that, other than raising your awareness. But governments and other international organizations are the ones that are doing the fight back. Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act was passed in 2000 in the United States. The United States kind of leads the way in combating human trafficking. You can see that other nations are still a little bit behind us, but they're coming along. This is just in 2008. This picture on the background here is showing. It shows that these people are organizing to fight for, lobby for harsher penalties against slave labor and trying to get their government to pass better legislation like the United States. When Barack Obama became the president, he kind of revitalized the conversation of human trafficking, and to try to address it and kind of strengthen the protections of human trafficking victims and broaden the scope of the government's action in fighting against human trafficking. This is called the Trafficking Victims Reauthorization Act. This was passed in 2008. The act really it strengthens the protections of the victims and strengthens the penalties against the people that are doing these acts, these different organizations and whatnot. And also, as America, we're a leader. We give aid and assistance to a lot of these developing countries, so we're holding them accountable as well, is what this act does. It makes if they want to continue to receive aid from the United States, they have to report back on their numbers and their arrests and prosecutions as far as human trafficking goes. So in conclusion, human trafficking is a huge problem. It's a complex issue with many different forms. It's very prevalent in our nation and across the globe. There's millions of people involved, billions of dollars involved, and there's a lot of victims. But there is a fight back. There's a pushback. The government, the United States, is kind of leading the way, as well as the United Nations and other countries are trying to get together and work together to combat this huge problem in our world. I just want to end on this quote. I think it's a great quote that really captures the idea that most people have and kind of the sentiment that most Americans have to thinking that this is not an issue and kind of turning a blind eye to it. In America, we have this very long history of sort of moving things we don't want to see into places we don't have to see it, and then it doesn't exist. We do it with our poor people. We do it with ugly parts of the town. We make sure there are interstates that go around it, so people with means and power can live their lives in days without seeing it. This is by Dana Boyd, the director of Human Trafficking Legal Clinic. So hope today you become informed about the prevalence of human trafficking, the different forms of human trafficking, and all the different ways that governments and other organizations are combating it.